I'm here with Mayor Andrew King, and I just thought I'd stop in and get a bit of an update on what's happened in Hamilton over the last couple of months since I last did one of these. What's new? I know there's a big change in the buses that's happened with the free buses and things like this. Well, you can explain it, but free buses. So what else has happened that's moving Hamilton into the future?
Okay, so it's all about Grow Hamilton, Love Hamilton. Grow Hamilton is about the business side of Hamilton. Love Hamilton is about the amenities and doing the right things for Hamilton. So we'll start with the buses since you brought it up, Lance. So great to be here again, Hamilton Kiri Roa. Thanks very much for the invite, Lance. You're the one guy, Lance, who comes out, gets the word from elected members and shares it with the public, and I really do appreciate what you do. So it just gives people a broader understanding of where we are and where we're going.
At least we know that the information is straight from the horse's mouth.
That's right, yes. So buses. We've introduced free buses for those with disabilities starting at the beginning of this month. That's physical or mental.
Okay.
And that is a fantastic thing, and I think everyone agrees with that, looking after our most vulnerable. We've got the whole concept of free buses comes from lots and lots of people who've said to me, I'm sick of seeing our buses driving around empty. Well, the buses are run by Waikato Regional Council.
Yeah. They
rate through their system the money to run the buses out of Hamilton ratepayer money via Waikato Regional Council tax, or rates.
Yeah.
So the buses are there whether we like it or not. The buses are running around on our streets empty all the time outside of the rush hours. So let's fill them up. This is about looking after the environment.
Yeah.
This is about efficiencies, and this is about decluttering our roads. So where do you start? Well, let's get the most vulnerable group or one of our most vulnerable group, or a vulnerable group, those with disabilities, and those who have mental impairments. Let's get them on the buses. That's that lot covered. They can go anywhere in the Waikato anytime. The plan had been sitting at Regional Council already.
Oh, okay.
But when we raised it, they got the plan out, blew the dust off it, and put it into place, and that's why we could do it so quickly.
Oh, cool.
So we're really proud as elected members from Hamilton City Council to have brought this up and have got this going. Now, yes, there's lots of other people here in the background who've been working on this for a long time, but you still need the political will to get these things over the line.
Yeah.
The second thing we're doing is, and it's already underway, is free buses for under 18s. Now, or 18 and under, so that's under 19s. And that's any time in the weekends and public holidays. Now, this is a start to get, what we're trying to do is get young people on buses, used to riding buses, used to using buses. Now, this is in Hamilton only, so inside Hamilton's boundary. You can't get on a bus and go to Huntly or Raglan. This is inside Hamilton. And so if you're 18 and under, you can get on the bus and ride for free. And public holidays and the weekends. Now, once again, that was a time when the buses were already running and the buses were empty. We've already had, or not a lot of people on them, we're 3 weeks in now, we've already had a 200% increase in the amount of people who are 18 and under using the buses.
Do you think part of that's because now that they're free, people can better schedule when they go places? I know with the gold card, the oldies get it free outside of peak hours, in other words up to about 3 o'clock or something or other. And I know a number of people, Dad used to be one, who would often schedule his trips, his appointments or anything, even though he still drove, he used the buses a lot, and he would schedule his things so that he could use the buses inside that space of time as much as he could.
Yeah, and this is what we want, because it's still looking after the environment, it's still decluttering our roads. The big kicker here is that Hamilton City Council shouldn't have to spend as much money on our roads, upgrading our roads, widening our roads, and building new roads. Because if we're using the buses and the bus services that are already there, and we can get people using them, we're not going to have as much clutter on our roads, and therefore we don't have to spend as much on our roads. So it's very difficult to measure, but we think in the end there will be a cost benefit side to this.
I think there will.
It's hard to measure.
I lived in Wellington for the best part of a year, and it was my first time of having a use of a public bus system, and the fact that Wellington had a bus and tram service for so long, it was normal. You saw business people riding buses, all sorts, and trains, of course, because it was convenient. Like driving around Wellington is a nightmare. Never mind the Hutt Valley. You just want to drive through the centre of Wellington, get from one end of Lambton Quay to the other. It's actually faster to walk than it is to go in a car. But the way the bus and tram system worked, if you were literally going from Parliament Buildings to the opposite end of Wellington, like Zoo or something like that, you could catch a bus and get there a hell of a lot faster than you could in a car most of the time, except for obviously late at night when there's hardly any traffic around. And Hamilton's getting to a similar situation. There are certain parts of Hamilton that have a high traffic flow, and I think by getting people used to using buses, by the time that potentially will become a major problem, people are used to using the buses, and the problem is avoided to some degree because most people are used to going to work on the bus, coming home on the bus, that sort of thing. I know a lot of our elderly actually really love the bus service because I get to ride the buses at all different times, especially during winter, and I've known a few people Dad's age, before Dad passed away, Dad's age, and that sort of thing that use the buses a lot. And they find it convenient because they don't have to deal with the driving. It's nothing against your age, it's just that it's more convenient to not actually have to do the driving when the bus goes right past your door.
Well, the next step what we want to do is, what I'd like to see do is open up the buses for free for all school holidays. So, and they'll get the kids on the buses in the school holidays and follow them up once again when they're empty. And the next step, now remember at this stage, this hasn't cost the ratepayer anymore. We put up Waikato Regional Council and Hamilton City Council had put money up for a case study to see how this will go. We're using that money, instead of doing a case study, we're using a live business case of actually testing it in a live case. So it's not costing the ratepayer any more than it would have getting the business plan done. And this is a live business plan. So the next step will be school holidays, but our buses are still driving around out there largely empty. So why wouldn't you expand it out to make buses free for everybody during all times apart from peak times? So in other words, on gold card rules, make it free for everyone and get the cars off the road, get people into buses. It means that we can still do it with the same amount of buses we've got, and it means that we actually move forward looking after the environment. But this isn't about user pays. This is about the overall efficiency of the roading network. So if you can put yourself in the frame of mind that this is about everything that's happening on our roading network and on our transport network and the benefits that we're getting as a city, not what's in it for you in your own pocket. So that's the very important thing.
And it's effectively a form of reallocation of roading repair spend, because what is being spent on running the buses is being saved by less traffic on the road. 60
people on a bus. That's 60 cars not on the road. And you line up 60 cars, that's a lot of cars. So moving on from there, that's probably enough for transport for now. Of course, we've got our electric scooters coming, which will get you from home to the bus and from the bus to your work.
Yes, I saw the lime green guys downstairs the other day. I sort of went for a bit of a spin on one of those. I'm used to big wheels on an electric bike. The little tiny wheels, I could adjust to that.
And then the other thing you'll see around town now is the loop cars. So loop cars are you join up on your credit card. Anyone can join as long as you've got a driver's license, and you just go down, you use your smartphone, you get an app, you use your smartphone to unlock the car, to start the car, to drive the car, to use the car, park the car back, and that all goes straight on your credit card. And this is another type of thing that...
So basically the same as the Lime scooter concept? So if anyone's familiar with the Lime scooter concept in Auckland, this loop cars is basically the same principle.
Covers your insurance, covers a lot. Covers your petrol, your fuel. So the big thing here with the cars is it means that could Hamilton City Council do without a car fleet? Because if the loop cars are there on the street, instead, now I do understand you're building inspectors, people like that who are out all day going from site to site. Yes, we still need them with their utes and their tools in the back, but there's still another whole fleet of cars down there in the basement of the car park that maybe we can do without.
Yeah.
And so maybe Hamilton City Council never goes to electric cars, because maybe we go directly through to the shared car service.
Yeah,
And the shared cars are heading towards an electric car fleet as well.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
this whole transport package is really exciting. We're on the cusp of big change. It's happening. It's just a matter of whether we're going to be open-minded enough about it to accept it, or whether we're going to sit in our own cars, one person per car, most of the time.
And just taking the council fleet as an example, there must be a certain chunk of those cars that spend most of the day sitting in a car park downstairs, completely empty, not doing anything.
Yep.
And that's a lot of money tied up in a tin box with wheels on it that doesn't need to be tied up there.
Yeah, but even us who are living in the suburbs, what if we get these loop cars out in the suburbs? Our cars, we pay 20, 30, between $5,000 and $50,000 for our cars sitting in the garage most of the time, depreciating. You pay for servicing, you pay for fixing, warrant fitness is registered. What if you could just get the loop car off the side of the road, jump in that, go where you're going, park it up, somebody else can get in it, you can get in another one when you have to go back home. You know, the what ifs, it makes the mind boggle as far as the efficiencies to the overall network, including financing costs, servicing costs, running costs, maintenance, the losses, the insurance, the whole thing. Okay, and you won't even have to wash your car on a Saturday. So anyway, it's not for everybody. This is not about taking people by force out of cars. This is about giving a choice, which then declasses the roads, which makes then it easier for those who do need to or want to keep their cars. It also makes it an easier for them as well. So this is no way is this about taking cars off people. It's about giving a choice that Hamilton hasn't got up to now.
I think that's the thing people need to look at. It's giving people a choice of how they do things. And if you just look at the car thing as an expansion on, say, the Lime scooters in Auckland, and I've done enough street photography up there to see that truly in action, where people will travel the length of a couple of streets, then park it up and then go into a cafe or go back to work or whatever, and come out of work and scoot down the road for lunch, and it seems to work quite well. And so if you expand that into cars also, then there's going to be that group of people who it fits perfectly. I know a few people myself who I think would jump at the idea because it would suit them to use that system.
So I want to make it really clear, this isn't my idea. Where the idea come from is everybody telling me they're sick of seeing our buses running around empty. Me looking at the fact that we've got a 7-year contract on our buses. The buses are going to run around empty or full. It's going to cost us the same, so let's get them full. Let's do the right thing. And it's the same with the Central City River Park. It wasn't my idea. Where the idea came from, yes, I did float it, get it going, but where did the idea come from? It came from me during my lifetime hearing people talk about the city being built with it back to the river. Well, let's open it up to the river. We had the land there, we've opened it up now, and we've bought more land to open up further. Peacock, the Peacock subdivision, 8,000 houses up there. If we bring in the land inside Southern Links, the designated land, it could be up to 20,000 houses up there. New bridge going across, opening up the whole of Peacocks. That wasn't my idea. For 30 years I've heard about politicians talking about opening up Peacock. All I did was made good on the promises that had been made to the people of our city.
Okay.
The library in Hamilton's northeast, in Rototuna. 20 years we've been talking about that in the playing fields out there.
Sure.
Well, 20 years of promises. It's on the books. Everything was ready to go. We knew where it was going to go. Let's get it underway. So, and that's what drives me. Then these aren't fresh, original ideas. This is just having been brought up in Hamilton, listening to people talking and saying, let's make good on what's been talked about. Let's put a financial model together to actually bring these things together.
The other one I quite like is the change to Claudelands Bridge that's happening, or going to happen. I quite like that idea, especially since it's the central bridge, and I went back and read some of the history. My father did a write-up years ago on the bridges in Hamilton, and I was having a bit of a read about the history of the bridge and all this sort of thing. And I think it's quite appropriate that bridge now moves on to the next stage of evolution and how it's used, which is quite good.
So the other, I just want to make it really clear that my political model is a strong financial foundation.
Yep.
And from that, you can look after your most vulnerable. So that's not all your vulnerable, just your most vulnerable, but also look after the environment, look after everything else that spins out, or all spins out of a strong financial foundation. Now, it'd be really easy to be a mayor and hold rates down by not fixing things. And that's what had happened in Hamilton. We hadn't fixed Founders Theatre, it's closed, broken, $20 million plus to fix it. Chirapa Pools, Waterworld, $11 million to fix it. Hadn't been spending money on it, we deferred it. The Central City Library needed earthquake rating. Okay. The footpaths, we cut the budgets back on footpaths to the point where the trees were pushing up the footpaths, we weren't fixing them, and people were falling over, breaking bones. That is not acceptable. So if we're going to run a city responsibly, you have to rate at a level where you can actually look after what we've got properly. And that's what Hamilton's doing now. We're looking after what we've got properly. Now I want to make it really clear. Hamilton is rating in the bottom third of all councils in New Zealand. So we're not overrating. We were underrating before. And you just can't keep doing that, because all you're doing is pushing it out to the next generation, to our children and our grandchildren, to have to pay for what we didn't take responsibility for and pay for. And that's where we are. Okay. The other way to do it is to cut services. Members in the public didn't want us to cut services. When we proposed that, they said no, quite clearly. The other way things to look at is efficiencies in the organisation, and I believe as far as city councils go, Hamilton is run reasonably efficiently. Yes, there are always going to be things with 1,100 employees where there's weaknesses, but
that's an ongoing thing that you do find tweaks every now and again. Part of that, as technology progresses, you can make changes to the system as you go along, because technology allows it. Like the cars, for instance, that you wouldn't have dreamed of that 20 years ago. Now you've got a system where potentially the council could divest itself of a certain number of fleet cars and use a system like that, and that saves the ratepayer effectively money. I think that's what people need to think about is I think we all need to play a part in coming up with ideas, approach our councillors and in particular, and say, well, look, I've got this bright idea about how we could deal with this situation or whatever, and then as councillors you get to sit down and discuss and see if it's quite a feasible idea, and if it is a feasible idea, a forward-thinking council thinking about the future, that idea will bubble to the surface and actually go into action. Like, for instance, the buses have been sitting in cold storage for a while, and now we've got the free buses.
So what I'm about is a strong financial foundation, growth, and less red tape. And I still believe that we're still rules-based. Now, I said when I came in I wanted to have a look at the district plan and bring in a new district plan altogether. I haven't been able to do that, but we did get a red tape review done, which has looked at a lot of things and made it a lot easier, and they're talking about it saving the city hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Both for the developers and the city fighting each other on reports and things that consents that they've been applying for that don't have to be applied for anymore. So the red tape review has been successful. We call it a regulatory and efficiency. Look at the whole thing. But I would still like to see a full review of the district plan. I believe there's a lot of things in the district plan, rules-based, that could make it clearer as to what you are and aren't allowed to do, so that people can do it without asking for permission. And as soon as you have to ask for permission, that's when you have to get reports, and it costs a lot. So I am very keen still to get that done. So it's a strong financial foundation, growth, and less red tape, and that's what we've achieved, and it's been huge. And that flows me through to the next thing, or one of the other things we're working on, and this is again back on the social side, and that is Sky City and the extra poker machines that they want to bring to Hamilton. Now, Hamilton already has about 300 Pokies here, and they want to bring in another 60. I've said no. Council has agreed. We've employed the best Queen's councillor that we can find in New Zealand to challenge Sky City on bringing 60 more Pokies to Hamilton. We don't have a say, apart from, as the general public do, as far as pushing back on the Gambling Commission. The casinos in New Zealand answer directly to the Gambling Commission. But as the mayor of the city and the leader of the city, and my other councillors we've agreed to challenge Sky City on this.
That's good, because I'm one of these people that don't really see a need for them personally, and I can see the social issues with them in existence, and yeah, I know there's a lot of people who talk about the money that comes back into the community, blah blah blah, but I've seen the people that sit at them all the time, and I don't see that they're a benefit to the community. One thing I'm curious about, is there a sort of a closed door policy, once some go, you can't get them back? Or
no, there's two lots of pokies in New Zealand. You've got the pokies that are in the casinos that answer the pokey through the Gambling Commission, answers directly to the government, and then you've got the pokies that are in the bars and pubs and restaurants in Hamilton, or bars and clubs, and those are Hamilton City Council policy. So what we are bringing forward is a policy on those to say no more, a true sinking lid policy. You can leave them where you are, that's your business, you can run them for as long as you like, but once you have to move them out of that building, you can't. They're locked into that building only. And that will see a lowering of the numbers of them with time. The other pokies are the Sky City casino pokies, which answer to the central government, but we're challenging the Gambling Commission and Sky City as to whether they are allowed to increase the numbers. We say they shouldn't. Let's see what the Gambling Commission says, but to do that we need proper legal representation, which we've got. So this is another area. And the reason I brought up the Sky City pokey thing, so a little bit like the prostitutes bylaw that's coming up as well.
That's right. Yeah,
do we want the prostitutes being able to sell themselves on the streets, or do we want to keep it like it is? Now, Hamilton is one of the only cities in New Zealand where we say no to prostitutes marketing on the streets, selling their wares on the streets. Now, we don't let the hardware shops sell what they've got on the street. We don't let the pubs sell their booze on the street. We don't let the pie shop sell their pies on the street. They've got to sell it in their designated area. And that's where we're saying we want to. In general, we're saying we would like to keep it like that. Now, of course, we've all got an open mind on these things, and we're waiting for full consultation to come back and for it to come to council for full debate, listen to the arguments and making our final decisions. But these are the social things that go hand in hand, but you can't do this until you have a strong financial foundation. The financial foundation goes hand in hand with these things, so there's a double side to running the city. And so your buses, these other moral issues, these are things that you can only do if you're running the city in a responsible financial way. One
thing I've been curious about, just that we're talking about prostitution bylaw and the pokie machines, is can the public have much impact? Like, if people had their say, took the time to take an interest in what's happening in Hamilton, rather than just sitting back and waiting for councillors to do something and make decisions, if people actually wrote in and submitted their opinion on what should or shouldn't be done, whether it's supporting pokies or against them, or supporting or against one aspect of any of the bylaws that come up for review, does the public's opinion have much impact, or can it have much impact?
Well, yes. All of these things are open for submissions at different times. You've got to keep an eye on the Hamilton City Council website. When they are, you'll see that there's a window open where people can submit. and then those submissions are taken seriously and are considered, are collated up, and we do read them, and they do come through for us. So
and it can be from ordinary people. They don't have to be from
No.
groups or organisations or interest groups or anything like that. They can just be from ordinary Joe public who decides, this is my opinion on this issue, I want to state it.
Yeah. So I just want to go back a little bit here. I'm not about shutting down legitimate business.
Yeah.
When there's a business there and it's running and they've got what I would call grandfather rights. And when you're running your poke bar, you can I believe it's grandfather right, and you just don't come and shut it down, you let it run. But you don't let it move. You have a true sinking lid on it. So as long as you're in that place, they abide by the rules, they don't cause anything where they're breaking the rules where they might lose their licence. But if they did lose their licence, or if the building become unsuitable, or for some reason the pokies couldn't stay in that building, then at that stage, then you lose your right to have them. Okay, so this isn't about attacking anyone from running a legitimate business. Sky City with their 300 odd poke machines there, I'm not trying to shut down Sky City, and I'm not trying to say Sky City is not doing a good job for entertainment, tourism and things in their city. What I'm saying is I don't want to see it get bigger. Same with the pokies and the bars and the restaurants. I don't want to see more coming in. I want to see, if anything, less coming in with time. Okay. Now, I also see the dilemma of the pokies, Sky City to a minor degree, the ones in the pubs, and Sky City pays about 1.5% of the money that goes through the casinos through to charity. The pub pokies pay 40%. Now that's quite a lot of money that goes into our sports clubs.
I didn't realise Sky City was so low.
So yeah. Well, it's a business. They're there to pay profits to the shareholders. The ones that are in the pubs and restaurants are there to pay into charity to a large degree. All right. So how are these, as we run it down, how are these pubs and clubs and stuff going to survive? Who feed off that money? Well, firstly, I think that the people who are applying for the money have to make a moral decision on whether it's right to be taking off some people who are vulnerable, whose families are hurting because of it. But setting that aside, they still do support some of these clubs. So there is an issue of you wouldn't want to shut them down because they are feeding money through. You know, Waikato Rugby is a benefit factor. Our cricket team, Northern Districts. Okay, and these are teams that are very hard to. They won't make money in their own right, but the pleasure they bring to the overall country and internationally, and putting Hamilton's name on the map through our sports teams that we're so proud of, they still need some kind of a financial top up to keep them going. I mean, the City Council gives a lot of money in that we provide the beautiful grounds at FNG Stadium, Waikato. We provide the Seven Park, and we, with great pride, these are beautiful facilities. But those two clubs, Waikato Rugby and Northern Districts, can't survive without other income from other areas. And some of our sports people that we and our children and our parents look up to with great pride and sit around the television watching games in the weekends, all come from these clubs. Now there's also, how do the people get to those clubs? They come from small clubs, and those small clubs are also supported by this pokie money, and that brings those clubs through to bring through the people who are training up into the bigger clubs. So there's all sorts. What I'm saying here, this isn't straightforward. There's moral side to it. There's, should you be taking this money or not? If you don't, how are these clubs, how are we going to support the whole sports network? How do we bring ourselves through and maintain New Zealand's reputation for having one of the highest level of high professional and high level sportsmen out of any population base in the world? So these are all the sorts of things.
It's a rather complicated issue, isn't it? And personally, I would like to see some of these organisations, as much as possible, looking for funding elsewhere that they can rely on to the same degree, so that they can stop taking funding. But again, that depends on the business world and how, because where else is it going to come from? It's going to come from businesses that support them. So therefore those businesses need to thrive. So hence we come back to the Hamilton moving forward, progressing becoming a place where businesses can succeed more, and that covers things like hiring more staff, so there's lowering unemployment in the area, being able to sponsor sports clubs and things like this a lot more than maybe they do now, so that they don't have to survive on money from pokie machines, and all that comes back to the whole allowing Hamilton to become a place for businesses to move forward in the future, and I suppose you could say become an example to the rest of New Zealand. You know, we're big enough now that we can aspire to the concept of becoming an example, can't we?
So I guess the other big issue that I've got as the mayor is that we've got around about 170,000 people that live in Hamilton City.
170,000 already?
Yeah, well, about 169,700, I think, are around about.
We must be very close to changing electoral boundaries and things like this.
Yes, there must be, yeah. And as well, and then on top of that, we've got about 130,000 people who live outside of Hamilton who come in to use our businesses, to work, entertainment, to use professional services, education, the hospital. So when you add those two up, that's around about 300,000 people. Now, roughly as the crow flies, is around about 6 kilometres from the council building here to any of our boundaries. So it's a very, very small, Hamilton's a very small by land area. We're the third smallest council in New Zealand. We're the only councils that are smaller. Kaurau, who has about 7,000 people live in it, and Napier, that has 40,000 people live in it. Then there's Hamilton in size, next size up, okay? This has meant that we've had a lot of infill. So about 55% of every house that gets built in Hamilton is where an old villa has been removed. There's been, say, 6 houses put on there, apartments. So 55% of all new builds are infill.
I didn't realise it was that many. I have noticed there's areas that I've been into that I have noticed the increase in multi-dwelling structures, especially been quite a few in town I've noticed, and in places I've lived in Hamilton.
Well, we're running at 55%. Tauranga, for example, is running at 18%. So it's hugely high. Now, because of it, we've got the highest density in New Zealand. So we have 1,500 people who live in every square kilometre in Hamilton. There's no other city or territorial authority in New Zealand that has over 1,000, including Auckland. So
that's an interesting stat. I would have put Auckland in. I would have put Aucklanders at the top.
Auckland's 1,000 people per square kilometre. We're 1,500.
Gee.
Now this is good. It makes a very efficient city to run because your pipes don't have to be as long, your roads don't have to be as long, and you've got huge density.
And people like me can live walking distance from town.
But we do have to protect the land that's outside of our boundary. So in Hamilton, as soon as you hit the country, you're outside Hamilton boundary. When you go to Christchurch, you hit the boundary, you can drive for 20 minutes, you're still in the country. And that's inside.
Yeah.
So they can plan properly their expansion. When I fly down to Queenstown to go skiing in Wanaka, I drive for 45 minutes from Queenstown Airport to Wanaka, and I'm still inside the Queenstown Lakes District. And so they can plan the area properly. We are so short of land that some of our planning outcomes are perverse because we're trying to put things in wherever we can. So we do have to expand our boundaries. But in the meantime, what we don't want is people subdividing land on the other side of our boundary in a way that makes it very difficult for us to then, the farm's gone, the farm's been chopped up into 1 acre blocks, and then it comes into Hamilton. How do we then refit that to put streetlights in, footpaths in, water in, sewage in, and pick all of that up and then get it down to, say, 300 to 600 square metre sections? Makes it nearly impossible. So what we want to do, and what I want to do, is stop our neighbours subdividing on and around our boundaries so that when the land does come into Hamilton, it comes in as farms so that we can actually subdivide it in a responsible and a proper planned way. And so we're not using Hamilton ratepayer money then to put the footpaths, the street lights, the sewage, the water, all these things in, which is hugely expensive.
Yeah.
Okay? The other thing I just want to remind Hamilton ratepayers about, and Hamilton's one of the few cities in New Zealand that does this, when you pay your rates, everything's included. You don't pay for your rubbish service on top. There's a lot of places
you don't
pay for your water. Okay? So what you pay for your rates is largely inclusive of everything we get. And when you're looking at what you're paying, you need to factor that in.
Yeah.
So we're still at around about the bottom third, at around about 33%, 35% at the bottom end of all the people who pay rates in New Zealand.
That's not bad.
So we still are reasonably priced, even with the increases that we've had, so that we can run the city properly and responsibly.
I think that's
With
something.
with the services we've got.
Yeah, I
People
think
don't
that's
want
something
those.
people need to remember when they have a cry about the increase in rates. And yes, that's hard to deal with, and people on fixed incomes can find that difficult. But I think they need to keep in mind what they're getting as far as those services. Yes, people might have a grizzle about what they're getting, but they're forgetting that they've had free water, free rubbish collection, etc., free libraries, all this thing for so long.
You get your
we think
roads,
it's
your
normal.
libraries, your street lights, your parks, your swimming pools. You have to pay for them. They're heavily subsidised. Your zoo in Hamilton, it's heavily subsidised, but it's still there. All these things that you get with your average rates in Hamilton is very similar to the average residential power bill that people pay, or energy bill, so power and gas.
Yeah.
Very similar for the average across New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
So with your power, you get your power and your gas, you get your heating, you get your lights, okay? You get your electric whiz bands in your kitchen and your electric door in the garage.
Yeah.
With your rates, you get your sewage, your fresh water, your drinking water. It takes care of your water off the roof, your stormwater, your roads, your footpaths, streetlights, the parks, the libraries, all of these things, okay? And when you think of it like that, it's extremely good value when you compare it to the average energy bill in New Zealand.
Especially if you compare it to places like, I think Tauranga is one, and I know Auckland is, where you actually get a separate bill for the water and sewage and the, and you're paying for those as a separate thing.
Yeah.
So,
but our rates are cheaper than Waipawa on one side and Waikato District Council on the other side. Hamilton's rates are cheaper. They don't get sewage. You have to pay for your rubbish. Okay, you pay for your water.
Okay.
Your trickle feed water. Okay, you pay for, so you think, when you actually stop and think about it, in Hamilton City you're getting a very good deal. But the bottom line is that we had to rate in a way that we were looking after what we've got. It's irresponsible to be running our city down and not looking after it.
Yeah.
So on that note, we better fly, Lance. Thank you very much again.
Thanks very much for your time.
What you do, and So
well, that's cool. It's interesting to have these chats, and I think if people watching this keep in mind that there are these things to think about when they move forward with the ordinary day life, and yes, some people are going to disagree with some of what's been said today, and some people are going to agree, and some people are going to sit in the corner and have a cry about some issue or another, and people will post all sorts of comments. But essentially, you've given us the rundown and the facts, and people need to stop and think about these things before they have a grizzle or a complaint and this sort of thing, and think about what they're getting and the direction Hamilton's moving, and what, I suppose to some degree, what part are they going to play in moving Hamilton forward?
Yeah, well, probably in wrapping up, what I'd like to say is the hard decisions have been made.
Yeah.
We are now in a really good place. We can now afford to do the things not only that we have to do, but the things that we want. So going forward, it is going to be good for the families of Hamilton. It is going to be good for the people who live here aren't going to have to face, and the elected members aren't going to have to face more of these hard decisions going forward. So on that note, grow Hamilton. I love Hamilton.
Cool. Thanks.